across categories, cutting across media, and thinking broadly about who makes art and what we think of as art, as opposed to putting it in some other category. And so I've hoped for a very long time that we'd have these two very special people here. And so this year is it. And on the left, wearing the lovely hat, is Joyce Scott. And Joyce makes sculptural works, and in particular, beaded necklaces or neck pieces that are both, on the one hand, an ornament in a sense, but on the other hand, art and social and spiritual commentary. Her work is amazing, in my view. And most recently, her work was the subject of an exhibition at the Baltimore Museum. There was also a show at the Fuller. Her work is widely held in numerous collections, and she was the recipient of a MacArthur. With her, to my right, in coral, I will say, is Lowry Stokes Sims. And Lowry is an extraordinarily accomplished curator and cultural thinker, and worked at the Met, at Studio Museum in Harlem. She has worked with the Baltimore Museum.
Don't forget that.
Yes, oh my heavens. And the Museum of Arts and Design, how could I? We had drinks at Robert, and she retired from there, as that was her, where, from the place from which she, quote, retired. Of course, what is retirement, given the fact that here she is, and she has curated numerous exhibitions in the interim as well. And so today they're going to have a conversation about Joyce's work and related thoughts. And I'm really, really thrilled, because this is something I've hoped for a long time. So I cannot wait to hear what they have to say. Thank you.
So when you all read the program, I imagine you thought, well, what the heck do beads have to do with all this? And I think it was the vision of Lisa and Erin, and we thank you very much for bringing us here. I want to thank he's sort of roaming around, our parole officer, Malik, who's making sure we behave ourselves and stay on the straight and narrow. And I really appreciated Andrew's evocation of the canonical and the non-canonical, because I think when I left the Met and the Studio Museum and became a curator at MAD, I sort of realized I had entered a whole other world where, you know, like the fine arts was sort of like the dark side of the art world, but the crafts were the moral center, you know. So, you know, I had the privilege of working with Holly Hutchner and David McFadden, and for that brief moment, you know, on the first decade of this century, they had a vision of the sort of merging of art, craft, and design that was really very special. So given this whole idea of canonical Joyce, I want to just sort of engage you in a conversation about how you got involved in beadwork. I mean, I'll show the first slide, which indicates the range of just the range of a few media that you've worked in. So here you are, graduating from Mike in the 1970s when you got your BFA. Quilting, weaving, apparel. What led you to that path during this era of minimalism and color field painting?
Well, firstly, I'd also like to say that I'm very honored to be here today, and thank you. And I don't think I cared that much about color field painting and that, because when I went to MICA to get my undergraduate degree, I was told to stop painting for the betterment of myself and the entire human race. And so I went, and they actually said that. So I went off to something else. My first art teacher was my mother, Elizabeth Caldwell Talford Scott, who's a nationally recognized textile artist, and the quilt in the center is something that we did together. My mother was my first bead teacher. And my mother, also being from South Carolina, a sharecropper, picking cotton, was born in 1916, which means her parents were born in the 1800s, and she knew her grandfather, who was an ex-slave. That's the person who raised me. So my ideas about how to proceed in art and everyday life was tethered to how she was brought up and the things she knew, not only about the current kind of license I had to be a kid. I was also born in 1948, which is right after the Second World War, which meant the world was in a different place as well. Now, how did I get to beadwork as a primary constituent of what I do? In 1974, I went to Haystack Mountain School of Crafts to work with African and African-American artists and students. I went back in 1976, the bicentennial year, and there I did what I said I was never going to do again. I took Navajo weaving again. I feel is a kind of personal torture that I put myself through. And I also, at the time, was weaving with beadwork and embroidering beads. But I met Sandy Fife Wilson, who taught me the peyote stitch or diagonal weaving. You do not have to do the drug to do the stitch, guys. I see people like this. But couldn't you try it? You don't need to. Well, that opened the door as a beader for me, because when you are a weaver, and I was a weaver for years as well, then you have a loom and warps to mess with and tools. When you're an embroiderer, then you're locked the needle, thread, and the fabric. But this diagonal weaving, this peyote stitch allowed me to be a free thinker, and I was only limited by my own vistas, my idea about making work. So that's why I started doing it. It also could encompass any story I wanted to tell, any song I wanted to sing, any comedy, whatever I did, the freedom of that stitch allowed me to do it.
Okay, so we look at Chinese panthers on the
That's
left.
a loom piece.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can see how rectangular it is, and each sides match. And then later on, I got a little Jack Crazy Wild.
So we'll get to some more art, but one of the things that already interests me is how you can take beads and work on such giant installations, such as the one at Spoleto, and then you bring your sort of sense of color and everything to the conservatory that's in Baltimore. Talk about, I mean, you know, I see you sitting with big bowls of beads into the middle of the night doing that. How do you psychologically and mentally make the leap from working so individually, intimately with yourself to doing a large installations like these?
That was a question and everything. Well, firstly, I'm just that good. But that, when I say that, that didn't just come from me, you know, falling out of my mom's vag and just being that good. Many, many years taught me how to do the beadwork and have the freedom to pursue it. There's another thing that, and I talk about Rodney, about this person, Lowry Stinky Stokes Sims, is the pursuit of excellence, to not settle for what others have done or for sort of what I could do to make money or whatever. The pursuit of excellence means that I propel myself past what I think I can do. And in that, not only do I learn and do different things, but I also, as a mentor and a teacher, allow other people to learn from me. So when I'm at the table with the beads, it's a very kind of mysterious thing. It's mystical. Because it is the peyote stitch and not the loom work, I can just jump in there and do it. I don't need drawings unless I'm working with something that's very expensive and you're going to mess it up. I'm trying not to cuss. Mess it up and, you know, lose a lot of money. As long as I'm working with this humble material that you can buy a lot for a little bit of money. I'm also a point to the list. I mean, if I were working as I have with prints, with wet materials, then I'd be able to blend because it's wet. But when it's dry, then you have to think of a whole other way. I'm also a singer, so when I'm there, I'm making music. Now I know what that sounds like. And as a kid, I took piano lessons and I could never learn music because it's dots and lines. And how do I teach people beadwork, dots and lines? Don't ask me, I don't. But it's that pursuit of excellence and not the fear to fall in a hole. I wrote a song once for one of my one-person shows. Do yourself a favor, 3 years of hard labor, dig yourself a hole and then jump on in while you're climbing out, find out what life's all about. And that is what I allow myself to do, not be so frightened of what others might think or what I might think is a mistake. I see it as an opportunity, and that's why I go after it. And also, you're not the boss of me. Not you personally, Lowry.
I get a lot of money being the straight person in this story. Now, the subjects and the themes in your work reflect your concerns about history, social injustices, the convolutions of sexual and race politics. How do you navigate your penchant for polemic in response to the human condition, and why would beads for you be a better vehicle than conveying these messages like in history or political painting?
Well, I do print work about that, but I tell you, I'm at 77, I love the idea that I can pay someone to clean up after me. So if I make prints or I dirty up the joint, you can have the assistants do it. But beadwork doesn't offer any of that. Unless you are eating the beads, you're not going to have that trouble. Yeah, the floor is covered with them. My bully pulpit is my beadwork. My way to talk about the things that trouble me, that astound me, that make me happy, the tumult, those things come to me in my beadwork, and I can be proficient. And if I'm doing jewelry, then the wearer is in on my conceit, because as soon as they put it on and they're that good looking, someone's going to have to come up and say, wait, is that lynching? Uh-huh.
So speaking of lynching, I was interested in being able to show these two photographs of the same work that give a very different effect.
Yeah.
Can you sort of talk about how you sort of reinvent forms when you sort of do them in different contexts?
Well, that's the great thing about beadwork. You can cut it, you can restyle it. This piece is called Lynch Tree. It was at Prospect 2 in Louisiana. And what was the school that I was at?
Tulane.
I was at Tulane, and the back of this piece is open. That's why it's flat on the floor. So it embraced the limb, and the lynch tree is, instead of the woman being lynched by the tree, she's lynching the tree. And those glass pieces that I did at Urban Glass, it's just talking about the juxtaposition of power for me. This piece is around 11 feet long or something. So
20 by 20.
So, like I'm going to schlep that with me to a party. So it means that I could then reposition it and tell the story differently by placing it on the floor, whatever. Now, when I say you're not the boss of me, by that I mean, if I think I can do it, I'll do it. And the lack of fear I have in trying it, which that's what allows me to keep seeing things over and over again. And that makes me stronger as a beadworker or as an artist, because I see the possibilities of change. And that is, to me, very important.
I thought these were like really kind of interesting in sort of your doing a kind of twist on a rather familiar image of young Black children being used as alligator bait, which appeared on so many postcards.
Yeah.
And then also dealing with the whole issue about rape, particularly with the
Yeah.
Darfur situation. But I also want you to talk about using your use of found objects with your beading.
Okay. I am a citizen of the world. I'm an African American woman. But I don't only talk about the things that throttle me because I'm a woman and I am a human. But some things specifically relate to the experiences of me as an African or as a woman. Man eating watermelon on the top is not about a man eating watermelon. It's about a man being consumed by the ideas, the stereotypical ideas about what being a Negro is. The piece on the bottom is made for Darfur in the Sudan. You know, when that war first started, the Janjaweed, who that's one of the tribes, came into the villages on camels. That's how medieval that war was and still is. The men would be killed and the women would be raped, or they'd run away. They'd go to a big immigrant camp. They'd go out to get water and they'd be raped or killed. So her body, this water carrier, is made out of a jar, a glass container. And the legs are made out of a pipe. Why? Because people put pipes in their mouth. They suck on it and they gain pleasure. And it is the color of skin. So I'm mixing up a lot of things at once and asking you to find whatever trail to my ideas possible.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sort of menaced with this. I love this kind of trio of images because of the way that you're using these found objects. How do you decide what to use and how they enhance the different things? I think headshot in the middle is like really pretty interesting because there were so many African American artists who did pictures of a Black head in a scope, with a scope in the whole thing.
I used to go to Penland and work in North Carolina. My father lived in North Carolina. They'd give me a house. My friend would drive us. And my mother was alive at the time. We stop in Durham and see him. And then we go over the mountain to Penland, Asheville. Once, and I used to stop every once in a while because it'd be really insulting Afro-related stuff. And I thought, you should not have this. I'm gonna buy it. Well, I went in and there was this liquor bottle that used to have liquor in it. And I understood then what a shot of liquor meant because people used to put guns, pour the liquor in the barrel and drink out of it like that. So Headshot is filled with bullet casings, not real bullets. And it's about the young men who are so enmeshed in violence that they destroy themselves, not only their physical bodies, but their soul. The little girl that's from my Ancestry Progeny series. You can't choose your grandparents and they can't choose you. So you are an amalgamation of whatever happened. Whatever relationships that you like or don't like, you're that. And then the final one is about marrying a doctor. So everybody knows it doesn't matter what ethnic group you are, if you marry a doctor. Now, for African Americans, sometimes those who deal in colorism, then the idea is he's very dark and I'm not sure if he's pronouncing English the same way, but he's a doctor. And so I'm also turning that myth on myself and others who think that.
This is one of my favorite because it really brings in the kind of analysis of all the different kinds of racial mixings that are part and parcel and sort of codified in Mexico in the Costa paintings. How how do you find that history impacts your work in a way?
Well, I went to graduate school in Mexico, and I went to Mexico specifically because I would be in a country with lots and lots and lots and lots and overwhelming amount of brown people. Wherever the Spanish went, they took black slaves with them. And the Castas paintings, see, this is how crazy human beings are. So you marry one person of a different ethnic group. You don't have to marry them. You're together, and then you have an issue, a child. And so you're all named different things. They call the kids things like lobo, which means wolf. Okay, but how many generations that they still had to give you different names and stuff? So I thought human beings are just crazy. And well, you should call somebody a banjo and a banana peel. I'd be doing that instead of, dog, wolf. So I put together this family unit, which is an African sculpture, a woman wearing a Mexican mask, and their child in the middle. People don't actually know about, or let's not say that. People don't take a lot of time to investigate the African history in Mexico and other parts of Central and South America. But when you see things like this Castas painting or the way it's graded up, you understand how racism inculcated and really shaped the culture of places even outside of where we live or Europe. And that's important because it affects everything we do. Notice how many black people Trump took to China with him. I'll wait.
So I figured we could not, because you said nobody could tell you what to do. And I didn't think we could do this presentation without addressing the Cuddly Black Dick series. A series. She did a series of these.
Someone's running out right now.
And
It's on the screen. Oh my God.
And then this more recent Dick Pistol piece that you've done. So explain yourself, young woman.
I did a series called the Cuddly Black Dick series, and I made a lot of black penises. And then I started thinking, where are these going? Honestly. And what are people doing with them? Because they were realistic. And then I met a man who had a penis collection who bought one of my pieces, and I was like, done, finished. When this woman's sitting next to her husband or boyfriend, she sees an actual man. When many people who pass them in the park see them, they see a white woman with a black dick. And so I was very, very vocal and open about how we frame what we do to each other. There are different ones that all talk about this kinds of things. And a piece that was just in an exhibition and commissioned by the Dallas Museum is this piece called Dick Whip. I was watching the news a few years ago, and there's a guy on a horse in Florida. He's a policeman, and he's in the water on his horse, and he's whipping immigrants back across the water. Now, these people aren't trying to get into America. What they're trying to do is get food and the free things that are given them. And most of them were Haitians. And he's whipping them. And I thought, well, this is 2024 or 5. How does he not see what he looks like? Then there was a commemorative coin made about this with the guy on it. And they took it off the market because people were like, that's just no. I know that because I tried to buy one, of course. And it's like, no. So I bought a whip. I didn't have one at home. I know what you're thinking. I bought a whip and I looked at it and thought, this is very penile. So I turned the whip into something that you beat, and out of it, it's semen are different words. It's red beads, You wrap the whip part around your neck and let the penis and the words fall on you.
It's meant to be worn.
It is meant to be worn. Now, you can see being in a party with that on and have someone come up and you say, well, look at this word, look at that word. Or many times it's like at the exhibition, it was spread out with a picture of me wearing it. I think that better out than in. And I think what a sad and sick individual I would be if I did not therapeutically deal with the things that throttle me. And the way I do it is my best voice, and that's with the visual and performing arts. And it must mean something because people get it. It's not like they don't look, they go like, that's pretty. I wonder what that is. People get it.
So I did want to, we worked on an exhibition together with Patterson Sims, who many of you may know we're not related, although we have the same
I
last.
think they are.
Anyway, Cousin Patterson, as I call them,
Yes.
in 2018 for Grounds for Sculpture and
New Jersey.
in New Jersey. And you had this idea to do 3 apparitions of Harriet Tubman, one in fiberglass and one in packed earth. And then you had at the last minute, and the idea to do her as a beaded Buddha.
A Buddha.
So talk
Those
about
are big beads too.
Yeah. And so these are like truly, like multimedia, big works in need of a collaboration. How did you ease yourself into this work?
Well,
And why Harriet?
Firstly, I like collaborating with people, especially if they're going to do a lot of the work. And that means I can get a bigger budget and then I can appeal to people in different ways. I chose Harriet Tubman because I'm from Maryland and she's from Maryland. I chose Harriet Tubman because she makes me think of my mom. And I also chose her. I don't know if I showed you that picture. She, at the end of her life, adopted a young woman who I look exactly like. So I figure we have gone through centuries in transmusicration, whatever that word is. And I'm some way hermetically sealed to Harriet Tubman. But she's a heroine of mine. She, people always show her with a rifle, and I show her with a rifle. She and her father were lumberjacks. She carry an axe. You mess with her, okay, you don't need that finger. They be going over bramble and going sideways trying to get to freedom. And some slaves would say, I don't think I can make it. And she'd say, well, I'm going to have to dispatch you right here because I can't risk everybody else. And they'd say, oh, I feel so much better. So she was that woman. And she was a spy. She was a nurse. I mean, come on. She was a superheroine. So, of course, I want to do Harriet Tubman. The one in the center is made out of dirt. And I wanted to I had a dirtologist. I wanted something, because it was up for months, that the weather would destroy it, just like her memory disappeared for us for so many years. She's covered with beadwork, and on the side is a letter that Frederick Douglass wrote to her in response. She asked him, would you write something for a book about me? And he said, are you kidding? This is in modern vernacular. He said, I just write about it. You're out doing it. Wow. Well, my dirtologist, and there's a big giant, this is what, 15 feet tall, something like that. So there's a giant gun that I made that's packed with all kinds of things in latex. My dirtologist made such good dirt, it wouldn't disappear. The things were falling off, but it wouldn't die. So I think the people at Grounds for Sculpture had a drinking party and went out and knocked it down. Because one day it wasn't there. The other piece is Harriet Tubman. She's standing on the quilts that my father's mother made. There's that lynch person. Remember the woman? And in the very back, you'll see her hanging from a tree. She's carrying another rifle and a veve, or a power piece, all beaded. And that's her walking to freedom with others. And then Harriet as Buddha. I have a lot of Buddhas in my house. And I love him because he doesn't say, I'm God. He says, I'm an actualized person. Well, that's something I strive for. You can see I haven't made it. Don't say a word. You nothing. But I'm always striving for it. And he was like, he got skinny. He was almost dead. He walked. He did all this. He came from wealth. And I love him. So I thought, well, wait a second. Isn't that Harriet Tubman? So I made out of large beads her. She's holding a rock rosary that my mother made, and all kinds of halos and things on her head. And she was on the top of the door into Harriet's cabin or Harriet's bedroom or boudoir, whatever the name of it was. And that was an installation that I did there too.
I just wanted to share, the terror of being a curator with Joyce.
Whatever does she mean?
She came up with this idea because we would get texts in the middle of the night. I see Harriet as the Buddha. And I said, okay, this is like 2 weeks before the exhibition is opening. Beaded Buddha. I said, okay. And then she thought she was going to go to Lubbock, Texas.
That's right.
And give a lecture. Fortunately, the only identification she has is a passport, which had expired. So she had to keep her butt in Baltimore. This sculpture, because she sent us, daily text and images, was created in 5 days. It's 40 inches
I told
tall.
y'all I'm good. How are you?
5 days.
Also, it's made out of really big beads.
So speaking of Buddha, there's lots to sort of talk about in this slide. First of all, these are glass pieces that you did in Murano with Adriana Barengo's glass dress. And I think it's some of the best work that you've ever done. So I'd like you to sort of talk about how the process of working in Italy, the combination of the beads that were infused in the glass and how you solved that problem. And then tell us why it was that Buddha gave basketball to the ghetto.
Well, I remember when I told you I went to Haystack in 1974. I went back as a teacher. I went back, as a student. And I would always insinuate myself in the glass studio. And that happened wherever I went. So I went to Pilchuck. I went to Penland. I was always in that glass studio because I was like an exhibit, and translucency meant a lot to me. That's very funny. Wake up. That's a very good joke. But it really did. And, I love the idea that you say do it and then someone else makes it, but you have to work with them for this to happen. My Gallery Goya Contemporary sent me to Murano, Italy, with the hopes that Berengo would also show my work in one of his exhibitions at the Venice Biennale, and he did. So I told this story before. I thought, okay, I'm going to Murano. Now, this was in 2011, and still sometimes in really classic studios in Europe, they're not that affectionate about women being glass blowers or working in glass. And I thought, okay, and a Black woman, this is going to be unique. So I had one of my garments of velvet that was all made specific for me. And I know that Italians generally like opera. So this is the truth. The first day I walked in, I had a fabulous wig, and I walked in, see if I can do it. And they were like this. Ma che se fare, Maraj? That's the absolute truth. And we work together. They're like, no. I'm like, see. No. I'm like, see. I went back twice to work, and I'm not joking about that. And they slowly started, understanding this. I also believe, because I'd done it before with different levels of success, if I'm working with glass beads, I should be able to fuse those glass beads to the glass. So the first year I did it, it wasn't always successful. If you look at the white Buddha face and the red Buddha face, that's my beadwork. But it wasn't always successful because the beads have a chemical compound that and they're not always compatible. I was teaching once again at Haystack, and my assistant who buys beads all over the world, I said, where can I get some really old Italian beads? Because they haven't changed that recipe. I did faces and I went back the second time. These, I believe, are from the second time. And I went back and they were shocked, just like I was happy about how these two combinations could work. The older piece is Buddha gives basketball to the ghetto. And that is about a contemplative figure doing something other than just playing basketball, talking about teamwork and self-esteem and mental and physical health. And I use Buddha. I went to Thailand and we were in a community and we went to a community temple and it was all lined with like Black Buddhas everywhere. And I'm like, something's amiss here. So I realized that I could show him, as they did, in many different forms. He didn't have to be gold. He could be a manifestation of truth, of a global Buddha.
So I think your neck pieces are your stock in trade, so to speak. And the fact that they contain all these sequences about hunger, rape, love, sex, racial stereotypes, and then find their way around the necks and wrists and ears of your devoted collectors, and could be seen in situations that are vastly different from what is depicted on the necklace. It begs the question of context in your work. So if I'm wearing them, do they indicate a particular social consciousness on my part? A true commitment to bringing these issues to the halls of influence? Or could it be that I'm just willfully disregarding the meaning in favor of being bedazzled by the beauty and the undeniable virtuosity of the work? So is there a trade-off in supporting the integrity of artistic expression, even if it indicts one's lifestyle and even one's existence?
That's a really good question because all of those things have happened. I know that there are people who just love the work. The piece with the black phrase is about a lynching. That's that person being lynched in the leaves from the tree. And the other one is about amalgamation, the Virgin de Guadalupe is also about this religious figure and the festivals. And I was raised in an apostolic Pentecostal church. When I became obstreperous in the congregation, my godfather, the preacher, he like preached with me in his arms, and I even did street ministry. So when at the age of 21, I went to Mexico and the Day of the Dead existed, because in my religion at that time, death was just a door that opened into something else, and the skeleton was not an emblem that was meant to be scary. So I was at home. I can say that I know some people even have worn it, like with the black penises, as a way to even make fun of what they were wearing. But then there are other people who you would never think of who are in whole hog, flat foot. I did one with the N-word all over it, and it was yellow and the stereotypical faces. And it was bright yellow and black and red. And a woman from Texas, tall like this, she had on cowboy boots, she's an older woman. She bought it. And I said, you know what's going to happen. She would turn it backwards, because with beadwork, unless you're doing something different, it's both sides. So that the word was harder to read. And then when you got up on it, started to figure out what it was saying, she got you. And she would have that conversation in Texas about racism and about the facility that a necklace could bring. Not just a facility, but how facile it was. I also make them because, I mean, these don't show a lot of the abstract work that I do, just because I like to luxuriate in beauty. And after what has happened politically, I stopped doing political stuff for a while, and I've just been doing beautiful things to help cleanse me and feel good. And also, I can make a nice piece of change by making jewelry. And how am I going to be self-supporting? I can still make something that I feel is gorgeous and miraculous and sell it for a price. And then once again, involve the wearer in my conceit, just being beautiful. That, yeah, these are examples.
And it's been interesting to sort of see, as you say, you know, like your evolution from like more narrative ones, like on the left, to a much more abstract one as seen on the right. And I was thinking about that, looking at the Ms. Ayala's work from the last panel about, you know, like very often to me, these have a kind of mapping, you know, sort of sequencing to it. And then how you've blown them up. These are, I mean, this slides just don't do these. These are like, you know, 8 or 9 feet.
I
You know,
went
like
to
12
11 feet.
you know.
11 or 12 feet.
So talk about how that evolution came, and do you do them all by yourself? Do you get people
I do
to
the
help you?
basic parts, and then once again, becoming a mentor and mentees. I have people who are artists, many of them, and who never did this kind of work before, or they'd never approached this work like this before. And I make the pieces, and then we join them together. Maybe sometimes we have a date where they would bring in their own artwork and we talk about it. I had made larger prints and large handmade paper things and whatever, and I was really like, I wonder what would happen if I made really giant beaded pieces. My one person 50-year retrospective had a yurt, a giant yurt, and the walls were covered with my mother, my grandfather, my grandmother, and my godmother's quilts, as well as beadwork on the inside covering it. I saw that I had this ability to make everything just as profound and glorious bigger. And I dug that a lot. So you didn't see that. I did clothing for a long time. And it was really the same thing about making things bigger and that you could move with it. I just loved it. Once again, they're also translucent or transparent sometimes. I want to be on my deathbed saying, if you bring some blue beads. We had a very, very close friend, Thomas Miller, who was passing, and to the end, he was working. I tell everybody, my comedy days, that at my funeral, I'm going to sit up in the casket and go, boom, boom, boom. 4 or 5 more minutes. Funny thing happened to me to death today. I was out on the corner. I want to be that artist to the end. And that means that not only do I have to be like, crazy about my work, I have to trust in my own abilities. And when I get scared, figure out a way to climb out of that hole. Because I'm going to say the other thing. Being a human being, see, I'm looking through plastic. I don't even know what's going on over there. Being a human being to me is pretty amazing. And if reincarnation really happens, you don't have to come back as a human being. You could come back as a bumblebee or a limpid pool that falls over a waterfall into like koi fish. You could come back as mucus. If this is true, that mucus thing usually gets folks. I don't know who this crowd is. If that's true and this is my only time as a human, I'm running it down. And since my language is my my lingua franca is the visual and performing arts, that's what I'm gonna do. I don't even have a choice. I don't have a choice because people died. Not people were whipped, not people were sent home. People died to give me this opportunity. Everybody has people in their family who did. I mean, I'm not saying that I am peculiar or specific. I just know that that's what happened for me. My mom washed the glass ceiling so that I could see where I should go and who I should bring up with me. Consequently, I don't have a choice. And luckily, I'm very funny and very talented. Funny, I get a laugh when I'm talented, you know.
I think this is a perfect place to end.
Should we do a Q&A at all? You want to do a Q&A at all? Q&A? Is there any time for a Q&A? Did anybody want to ask me something that wasn't prurient or insulting?
Do it at your peril.
Well, if not, then, oh, yes, look. Let her, because I can't hear you.
This was wonderful. Thank you both.
Thank you.
And it was lovely of you to mention the Goya girls. I'm so impressed by you and their relationship. I think it's fabulous.
Come on, I know there's somebody who wants to ask me something horrible, I think. Or, you know, how much I weigh, don't do it. Why I can get my cap closed up. I know there are people out there who want to know if I'm on those.
This is not America. This is not America's Next Top Model.
Sure.
Nobody cares about your gap.
Sure. I got a BBL thing that I could, all right. So I guess they're scared, and that's it. Yeah, there's.
I just like to hear you sing one more song.
Okay. Is that what you guys want to hear?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. This is a song, okay. This is how I usually end my lectures. When I talk to you about my parents, my father was a sharecropper who picked tobacco and crops in North Carolina. And my mother picked cotton and crops in South Carolina. She went to a one-room schoolhouse. Neither of them had a lot of academic education. But my mom, Elizabeth Caldwell Talford Scott, told me, do not hide your light under a bushel. That's an old Southern thing. Don't hide your light under a bushel, meaning if you are going to glow, if you have these talents, show it. They had to hide their light because of their lack of academic education, their ethnic groups, their status, and because somebody wanted to keep their foot on their neck. So I'm not going to hide. And I tell everybody, and you guys in New York will know this terminology, if you can't cop a hit off me, off this globe, then step back. Because this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Ooh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Ooh, let it shine.
Okay, we have a few minutes to stretch